With a box like this, I know we're going to be getting blue. But are we going to be getting deep blue? If you've been in the fountain pen game for a bit, then you're probably familiar with Conklin. They're one of the two primary brands that Yafa tends to sell. Now, that being said, when you think Conklin, you think primarily affordable pens. You don't really think ink. That's where Monteverde comes in. But that has changed, as Yafa has started to re-release Conklin fountain pen inks. Now, there's a little bit of stuff here on the side of the box, so let's go ahead and take a look at that, because there's an interesting little bit of story here. A legacy that lives on, the Conklin Pen Company is proud to reintroduce a new ink collection and redesigned packaging, which stays true to the original vintage look. Since 1898, Conklin is regarded as one of the most significant and innovative American manufacturers from the golden era of fountain pens. For more than 120 years, Conklin is striving in the spirit of bold innovation while providing high-quality fine writing instruments and premium inks around the world. Those are some pretty bold claims. Is any of it true? Well, I mean, Conklin in and of itself isn't its own brand, so that's kind of a false. Around consistently for 120 years? I don't think that's the case. Someone in the comments will probably have to prove me wrong there. So that's not looking good either. I will say though, 60 mil for the price that I paid for this ink? Not a bad price, so at least that part's good. And we're going to be taking a look at deep blue to see if this is really a deep blue. When I think deep blue, I think some of the colors I've seen from Diamine. I don't know if this is going to hit that. And, I mean, I could use my voiceover voice to read this, but yeah, just pause the video if you want to read that stuff, and let's go ahead and take a look at the bottle and then look at the other KPIs. When I'm doing these ink reviews, I like to make sure that the first time you see the bottle is pretty close to how I saw it when I took the bottle out of the box. And we have that here. The only thing that's really missing is the plastic safety seal that is normally on these when they come in. Which, that does mean, yes, there was a wrinkle in the label. Am I going to count Yafa off for that? No. A wrinkle in the label is definitely better than mold in the bottle. But it does kind of, I don't know, bring back around that this is kind of a budget ink. I'm really nitpicking here, aren't I? Let's focus on the good stuff. This is a glass bottle. This is a metal cap. And yeah, this is 60 mils of ink at a really good price. Check the Chalet link down in the description to see what the current price is at the time you watch this video. But overall, I like the wide lip that we have. It makes it really easy to fill virtually any pen that you have. And yeah, even though the label is kind of coming off there are worse things. But overall, I do like the quasi-vintage aesthetic we get here. I just wish the bottle wasn't as, keen on rolling around the table as it was, at least during this shot. This is like take 5, just because of this. But none of that has to do with the performance indicators. So let's go ahead, take a look at the color, the dry times, and the water performance, and then see if this ink is a good choice for you. Right off the bat, I like the shades of blue that we're seeing here. This is a nice cerulean blue, and in the lighter portions, it has hints of sky blue coming through. There is a little bit of a velvet undertone when you get to the mids, and when you get to the darker mids and into these transition tones, the velvet really takes over as you fade into these darker transitions and into a slight red sheen. Are you going to see any of that red sheen when you're writing? Maybe slower writers out of a broad or a double broad, but I like the fact that we can at least get there. If anything, performance-wise, at least in color, this ink almost, it reminds me of a Kon-Peki almost. It's got that nice cerulean blue to it throughout, from the lights to the mids and to the darks. It's just a really good, consistent blue color. But let's go ahead and take a look at those dry times. Here on Tomoe, we're actually looking at a pretty good performance. Yes, it's taking up to 25 seconds to dry, but this is out of the broad nib in my Kaweco Lilliput, and I am a little bit more deliberate when I'm putting these lines down for the dry time samples. And honestly, it is passably dry at 15 seconds. You may get a little bit of feedback on, well, feedback's the wrong word, but you may get a little bit of spotting on the opposite page if you shut your notebook. But 15 seconds for this isn't that bad. And over on Rhodia, we're actually seeing quite an improvement, almost a 10-second improvement. I would say this is functionally dry at 15 seconds, and, well, page turning dry by 10 seconds. So overall, if you need a faster drying blue ink, not necessarily the fastest, we have seen faster here on the channel, but if you do need a relatively fast drying blue ink out of a broad nib, this fits that category. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that water performance. As we get water on the page, we can already see quite a bit of blue lift here. So I'm not really expecting a good performance, and, well, if anything, this is going to be the one major sticking point against this ink. We've seen a lot of blue inks perform really well here in the water, and I don't think this is going to get there. But let's go ahead and get the water off the page and see what we get. I am willing to partially eat my words here. This is not the worst performance from a blue ink that we've seen, but out of 5, it's definitely a 1.5. We've lost quite a bit of the original writing, and the ghosting layer that's left, well, it's a little difficult to figure out what was written in spots due to the blue ghosting layer that was added on top of it. I would have liked to see a little bit of a more defined darker line underneath, but we just aren't getting that here. That being said, let's go ahead and see how this ink looks on paper, because not everyone needs to have waterproof ink. So, for some of you, this may not matter. For me though, I have to keep this in mind. For this one, let's go ahead and start off with Rhodia. The first thing I'm noticing is that out of this broad nib, yeah, I'm getting some really nice deep tones. Once again though, it is kind of reminding me of Kon-Peki. So, I mean, with the performance I saw over there, I'm still kind of leaning towards paying more for a Roshizuku than the cheaper Conklin bottle. Once again, that's personal preference, so you may be thinking differently than I am on this one. Overall though, I do like the tone and the shading profile that we are getting here. Though, as I say the word shading profile, I'm noticing that we are hovering more in the darker mids and those darker tones. We are also getting a little bit of sheen, which I wasn't expecting, but we'll take a look at that when we go over to Tomoe. Speaking of which, over on Tomoe, we're looking at pretty much of the same. This is a very consistent blue ink, and it has really good performance indicators here. I'm not getting any hard starting, skipping, anything of that nature. The line width, yes, was a tad narrower over on Rhodia, but not by much. It was still pretty competitive. And the color profile is pretty much the same. We are looking at more of the darker mids and the darker tones. That's not a bad thing. As far as blues go, this is a pretty pleasing looking blue. And here's that sheen I was talking about. As we move the paper back and forth, you can see little bits of red coming through. This is with me being a slower writer out of a broad nib, so your results may vary. But overall, it's not a bad performance, and I'm actually going to keep this one on the shelf, even though I may be reaching for another bottle. And that's going to do it for our look at Conklin Deep Blue. If you liked that video or found it useful, hit that thumbs up button, get subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.